Michigan State basketball Spartans, they rolled Monmouth off the floor at Breslin Center. And then after Michigan State loses to another first-year head coach in that fashion, what on earth is the path forward here for Jonathan Smith and Michigan State football? Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, do whatever makes you happy. If you ever want to reach out, hey, hit us up at lockedonspartans@gmail.com. And guys, before we kick off this show and get into the nitty-gritty of the basketball game, the football team, just got to shout out a listener out there, Brendan P. from Long Island. Kind of a weird story how this is getting brought up. My parents were at a bar somewhere. They were sitting next to another Michigan State fan as our Spartans were getting absolutely pillaged against Indiana on Saturday. And as my parents do, they're grassroots campaigning for my show. They brought up that, hey, that's right, I do this. And they mentioned, oh my God, we're a daily listener. But it's not just another listener. This guy shared his story that he's lost over 100 pounds walking every single morning and added that, yes, he does listen to Locked On Spartans every single morning. So I was nearly moving to tears here in that story. So that's just a really cool one. Have to shout out my guy, Brendan P. of Long Island. And all right, now let's get into the basketball games. Thanks a lot, Brandon. Thanks a lot for all you guys that listen and watch every single day or even just once a month. I was really conflicted how to start this show today because, well, football has a lot of passion behind it, right? There's a lot of eyes on this program. It's kind of been turning the gears of this show recently. And then the basketball team plays, and, well, of course, we're a basketball school too. We're blessed as a university to, have two major sports that the fan bases care equally about. So I said, you know what, screw it. We're going to start with the one that has actually given us some optimism here lately. So we are going to start with the 81-57 victory over Monmouth for the Michigan State basketball Spartans. Now, if you were one of the people that, just didn't want to pay the $12.99 to watch the Big Ten Network Plus version of this, well, I got to say, the students at Michigan State, the broadcasters, the cameramen, the producer, top to bottom, they did a fantastic job. Very smoothly run organization right there. So shout out to the Student U production crew. But let's talk about the student athletes on the court in the 81-57 victory. I say overall, first thoughts, good. I felt happy watching a basketball game with Michigan State playing in it. And I didn't want to reach my hands to the television and strangle the point guard for the first time in a long time. That was a weird feeling tonight. It's nice to be back to that. But no, look, Monmouth, I don't think you'll see them dancing anytime soon. It wasn't a spicy mid-major team like you had in James Madison last year. Michigan State learned their lesson there, and they got themselves a mid-major that they can handle. They were projected to win by 20 points. They win by 24 points, if I'm doing my math correctly there. Overall, good win, though, and I do love the way this game started. Just even before the under 4 timeout hit, it was almost like a here we are statement. Like, here's the new chapter of Michigan State basketball because you saw some action from a lot of new faces or faces that are going to have to step up majorly this year. Like, Jaime, I'm going to really struggle with Zapala's first name here. All offseason, I thought it was Zyman Zapala. It's Jamon Zapala. Regardless, really nice footwork for a 2-point basket early on in the game. Frankie Fiddler, the transfer from Omaha, he hits a jumper from the elbow. Jeremy Fears, your new floor general here. He hit a drive-in finish. That was his only points on the game, but, of course, he left his mark just on the night as a whole. He had 5 assists before the 10-minute mark even rolled around. And then you had the Jaden Akins slam to start the game. Even before the scoreboard could be put up on Big Ten Network, he already had an alley-oop. So off and running Michigan State went, but right there is your brightest spot. Jaden Akins, a guy that we've talked about this offseason. Of course we have. We talked about him last week as, that's going to be asking a lot to replace Tyson Walker's 18 points per game, especially with as inconsistent as we've seen Jaden Akins. Well, This is one of the upswings of this inconsistency. It's not inconsistent in the sense that he's always bad, of course. And this was certainly not it. 23 points on the night, 9 rebounds, had plenty of points going downhill. I mean, just attacking the basket. So you love to see that from Jaden Akins early on. But outside of that, plenty of other bright spots. I mean, Michigan State, very clear that rebounding the ball was going to be the thesis of the start of their season, and they hit the glass hard. At one point, starting the game with a 16-8 rebounding margin. They finished it with a 17-point victory in the rebounding margin. They had 48 rebounds to the Hawks' 31 rebounds. Now, a lot of that helps early on because Michigan State, good defense early on in the game. Actually, by and large, the whole game, I thought they played pretty solid defense, but they forced the Hawks into some tough shots here. And so when Monmouth goes 7 of 28 in the first half, well, yeah, you're also going to have a lot of rebounding opportunities. Bright spots individually as far as players go on top of Jaden Akins. Jase Richardson looks college ready, guys, doesn't he? And this is something that we were saying all offseason is, yes, he's going to see the floor early on as a freshman. Tom Izzo was saying as much because really it came down for me. And it also, you heard what Izzo would have to say about him in the offseason. Came down to his defense looks there already, just even as a true freshman that hasn't even played a dribble of Division I hoops yet. What you saw in Spain, what you saw in the exhibitions, what you would even see in the AAU circuit, he's got the clamps. Well, his offense certainly looks to be solid too. Now, you can't count on 10 points every single night out of the true freshman Jase Richardson, but I got to say, it's pretty clear he's going to be a main fixture of this team, not just because he had 10 points, all right? Not just because he had 4 assists or just 1 turnover, which is really good for a true freshman. The fact is, Izzo threw him on the court for 22 minutes. That's a lot of action for a true freshman, okay? Especially off the bench. This isn't like, your 5 stars that would come in and be guaranteed this many minutes. No, while he was ranked as a top 40 recruit, that's still a lot to pile on a kid right there early on. But it's clear Izzo trusts him, both because of his defense, his offense. He looks college ready right now, guys. Now, Kohler, Zapala, early on, you could see where the improvement can be for the big man. Just in general, just the position of the big man, the position that's absolutely killed Michigan State the last few years. Did they make enough improvements in the offseason, getting Zapala out of the portal, putting all their eggs in the Jackson Kohler development basket? Look, there's a lot of season left, guys, right? I think it's safe to say that. But, hey, this was a good of a start, probably as you could hope for. Zapala, 9 points, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks. If not for nothing else, guys, you also can't coach 7 feet. All right, he was disturbing the Hawks around the basket. Of course, 3 blocks right there, but he altered a bunch of other shots. And also, hey, Jackson Kohler, there's that 3-pointer that we kept hearing about last year. Now, of course, didn't materialize because he lost, 2 months of the start of the season where a lot of those developmental games happen. We didn't really see it all last year. But you get him a healthy offseason. You get him a wide open look from 3, buries the first one. That was his only one in the game, but that's fine. He also had a nice little cleanup, too, on someone's miss. I believe it was a Fears or a Richardson. Regardless, nice little putback there with some good footwork. 8 rebounds on top of all that. So, again, for the big man, it's not mission accomplished. It's not saying, all right, all of our issues are done. No, but, hey, you know what? If you want to see some glimmers of hope early on, that's how it's going to come right there. Seeing Kohler's outside game, seeing Zapala just disturb things on defense, also create an offense. It was nice overall. Now, there were some rough spots of this game. We're not going to say, hey, this Monmouth victory deserves a parade down Grand River, just for the heck of it. You did get a zero burger completely almost from Xavier Booker. Now, look, I'm not going to panic and say that this is going to be a long-term problem. He went 2 of 10 today. All right, just 2 rebounds. Which is crazy that the team gets 48 rebounds and Xavier Booker just 2. I'm trying not to overreact here. This isn't going to be an issue long-term. He's a fine player, of course, but that's a slow start to the season. 2 first-half turnovers, and unless my eyes deceived me in the second half, it looked like he airballed a dunk. He just spun around. He went up for the slam. He had no idea where he was. Anyway, you won by 24 points. We're not going to harp on it for too long here. What we are going to harp on for a little bit, actually, and this couldn't be a long-term concern here, is 3-point shooting. Now, Michigan State went into halftime, 1 of 10 from behind the arc, and I got to say I got the heebie-jeebies and some PTSD from last year's James Madison game, all right, where Michigan State scored, I think it was just 1-3 that whole game, and, well, you'll know how that happened. Now, the whole game, it didn't get much better. 3 of 18 shooting. You got one from Kohler, Akins, and Tang. Now, the issue here is, and why it's going to be a long-term problem, is you have 2 guys on the team this year that shot 36% from 3 or better last year. It's Jaden Akins and Trey Holloman. No one else outside of that shot above 36% on the season. So that's going to be an issue for Michigan State. Of course, you can make offense in more ways than just a three-pointer, but it would be really nice to add points 3 at a time instead of just that. All right, we're not done talking about basketball just yet. We have one piece of news to talk about here in a hot second. But first, guys, need to talk your ears off about Roy. That is right, the guys that are changing the NIL landscape, and you could help them too. So far this season, they've pulled together over $20,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change, and with the Roy app, you could directly support your players and athletes, and ensuring that all funds go to the specific player you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and even if you receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. And the best part, it is risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. Like last week after his great game against Michigan, Nathan Carter, we pitched in $100 for him. And hey, guys, you know what? Even $10 makes a difference. Let's show Nathan Carter and the rest of the Spartans the love and keep them connected to our schools. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets the team up for success. And don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets to a game in November. Just download Roy, create an account, and enter referral code LOCKEDON, and you are already entered. Already on Roy? Well, any contribution to an athlete's campaign can also get you entered automatically. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscription and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy_return on you for more info. It's Roy. Support the players, change the game. And guys, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, taking care of you on college football Saturdays, NFL Sundays, and yes, also this college basketball season. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. You will get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first win of $5 wins. That's over at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Again, guys, FanDuel.com. All right, the beauty of doing a live show after the game is that, oh my throat needs a sip of water. Thank you for bearing with that, everyone. All right, so the piece of news that we had to flirt with here before the break is that Jase McCulloch, a 4-star kid, big man, 6'9", 6'10", depending on what recruiting site you look at. Well, you're not going to be seeing a lot of him this year because he is redshirting this year, and what a stupid rule. In basketball, that is, if you play even a second, you don't get your red shirt. Whereas football, of course, you could play 4 games and preserve your red shirt. I don't see how it's even possible in the year of our Lord 2024 to not have something somewhat like that for basketball. Like you could play unlimited games in November, but then you got to make your decision by December, or making it like 8 games, whatever. That's the news on McCulloch. Izzo said it's not permanent, of course. If there's injury issues that they got to break the glass on him, then they will, roll him out there. But yeah, don't count on Jase playing at all this year, which is kind of a bummer. But look, hopefully it means better things for his development moving forward here and getting the most out of his eligibility. All right, so on to Niagara on Thursday. That will be on normal Big Ten Network, not Big Ten Network Plus. But let's flip the page to football here because look, not the greatest game on Saturday, of course, and that invoked a lot of emotion from a lot of fans, myself included. I wasn't the happiest camper on that show on Saturday, but Steve C. writes in. Now, just one question, but brings up a lot of good points, so this is going to be a long answer. I'm just going to spoil that right now. But Steve C. writes in, With the incoming class rated as 49th nationally, how do we ever right the ship? It's not like this is a growth year for the kids and we have a top 20 class coming into the fold to supplement down the road. Do we have to bring in 25 transfers? What is the path forward? Fantastic question with great points, Steve. Now, I will push back on just one thing. I will push back on the not like this is a growth year thing. Now, maybe you meant it differently. Maybe I'm interpreting it wrong. But I think this is definitely a growth year for a lot of the players because, look, when you have some depth issues, which Michigan State does have, when you have some injury issues, which Michigan State does have, that's going to let guys, younger guys, get a lot of growth here, get a lot of experience. Like Isaiah Johnson, I 182 snaps for him so far. Rakeem Johnson, true freshman lineman, he's getting some experience. Jalen Smith, Brandon Toulis, Mekhi Frazier. And those are guys on offense that are getting some good experience. Justin Denson's already up to 87 snaps as a true freshman this year. Jeremiah Hughes has 60-some. Marcellus Polium has some. And plus, well, how about the names that everyone knows, like Aiden Childs, a guy that everyone just still loves to hear about. And, well, of course, Nick Marsh, too. Like, he's a true freshman. I would say he's getting some good experience. So, look, I do think it is a growth year for some. Not all, but for some, it is important to get these reps. Now, I'm going to answer this question backwards one at a time. The last sentence was, what is the path forward? Now, Saturday after the game, we talked about how, okay, Curt Cignetti, first-year head coach at Indiana. First-year head coach Jonathan Smith over at Michigan State. They took two different paths to the rebuild. And, of course, it's safe to say that, well, Indiana made a pretty damn good hire. Right, guys? We're not going to argue that whatsoever. If the goal under Jonathan Smith is to eventually contend for a college football playoff, well, Indiana already did mission accomplished right there. So you can definitively say that it worked for Indiana. Jury's still out on if it'll work here, but here's what we mean by the two paths. Curt Cignetti brought in 31 transfers. All right, 13 of those James Madison kids, the school he was at prior to Indiana. A lot of these kids, a lot of the 31 kids that he brought over, older, experienced, 1 year of eligibility, maybe 2. Okay, whereas Michigan State and Jonathan Smith, 24 transfers. Of those 24, 7 of them have 3+ years of eligibility. All right, 5 guys additionally have 2 years of eligibility. So, of course, you want to have older and more experienced guys as part of your portal class. And Michigan State did have that too, like Luke Newman, Tanner Miller, okay, for example, or Ed Woods on the defensive side of the ball. Like, every transfer class will have instant impact, plug in and play, you are a day one starter when you get here sort of guys. But Jonathan Smith brought along more guys that, okay, you might not start this year, you might not even play a lot this year, but you have a good pedigree, like Samaj Bridgman, the 4-star from Michigan, who has really not played a lot this year, but has a lot of eligibility, right? Like guys like that, we're going to, develop you. And hey, by 2025 or 26, that's when we're really going to start getting clicking, right? Kind of like how Jonathan Smith did at Oregon State. It took him a few years. Granted, Oregon State was in much more dire straits than Michigan State was when he took over. And it's not to say Michigan State was in great shakes to begin with, but still, it's a slow burn rebuild. So I'm not telling you it's automatically going to work, but that's what we mean by two different paths in the rebuild process, right? Or two different strategies. Now, the other part of the question, do we have to bring in 25 transfers? With the guys coming in for the recruiting class and the guys that are losing eligibility after this year, Michigan State has about 12-ish to work with right now. It's transfer spots, that is. Now, of course, guys will also transfer out, so that number is only going to grow. But point-blank period, yes, you do need to bring in more transfers. That goes without saying. Now, where exactly on the field? Take your pick. I mean, the trenches clearly need help as they haven't recorded a sack since the Boston College game. All right, the offensive line, you could always use help there. You could use a speedy slot receiver. I'm not going to be picky of where you get it. You clearly need to, though. Now, this is a big, important part of that question. And this speaks to where we're going to be at with the longevity of this whole thing, because as he wrote, with the incoming class rated as 49th nationally, how do we ever right the ship? It's not like this is a growth year for the kids and we have a top 20 class incoming. Welcome back to the Mark D'Antonio days, guys, right? Where you are banking on development, being your road back. Now, I got to say, last year's class was 31st overall in the country. All things considered, where Michigan State was as a program, Jonathan Smith scrambling from Oregon State to Michigan State. All things considered, having a 31st ranked class in last year's class, that's pretty good work by Jonathan Smith. All right, nice job of saving face. Now, this year's class, not looking great. Our guy Steve, he wrote 49th nationally. I'm seeing on the 24/7 Sport Composite, the guys, they're ranked 57th, actually. Any way you slice it, 49th or 57th, not good. All right, and hey, our last glimmer of hope in the recruiting department was Dotson. Elijah Dotson, the kid's name is, 4-star defensive back out of Belleville. He visited for the Iowa game. He's going to come back on an official visit. Hey, maybe flip him. Number 2 ranked kid in the state. This could be awesome. Except it's not. Right now, he's crystal ball to go to Michigan. So it just even gets better for recruiting. Look, there are good kids in this class, but there is no way to spin that this can be the path moving forward, having classes that are ranked 50th year after year after year. And at Oregon State, well, it's not like it was great shakes out there either in Corvallis, right? They had classes in the 87s, the 62s, the 52 ranked class was the highest ranked class Jonathan Smith ever got to. So, look, what's the path? What is clear is that he wants to bring in young players through the portal. All right, patch up problems both now and also in the future. Not just instant guys that have 1 year of eligibility, but guys that have some longevity. Now, what's murky, of course, is the recruiting, because can it get better? It can, sure, once he makes, relationships with people here in the Midwest. That all can happen, but it's also no guarantee, right, guys? And it's also murky because, well, you just can't Mark D'Antonio it all the time. You can't bring in classes that are in the 40s and the 50s and then, turn 3-stars into NFL players. That is not sustainable long term, but that's murky. So what's the path forward? Well, that's the blueprint. Will the blueprint actually work? Stay tuned to find out. All right, guys, we're going to get back to more of it, including mailbag questions here. But first, you need to tuck your ears off about ZBiotics. Guys, ZBiotics Pro Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here is how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotic your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you will feel your best tomorrow. Actually heard from a few listeners over the weekend that both tailgated, went to some Halloween parties, that said, my goodness gracious, Matt, ZBiotics actually works. Well, of course it does. I mean, again, guys, you got to follow the steps here. Drink the pre-alcohol first, okay? For best results, make it your first drink of the night. Number 2, drink responsibly, okay? You can't be going crazy and, gunning 33 beers in the same night. Still got to pace yourself, got to hydrate, get a good night's sleep, and then enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. All right, guys. Also, TeamTicker.com. The holiday season is coming in hot. Get the Spartan in your life the best sign possible. Heck, maybe it's you. I know that I got a sweet Team Ticker sign back in my home studio, but what is the Team Ticker sign? What do I keep talking about? Just think of any countdown to kickoff sign that you've ever seen, but inject it with 50 times more steroids. This doesn't just count down the kickoff. This doesn't just count down the time to the next kickoff. You also get stats, a schedule, AP polls, weather reports. If there's a Michigan State game kicking off in a lot of other sports and football, it's going to play the fight song for you. Right there in your man cave or your garage or your kitchen or your bathroom, wherever you hook up the Team Ticker sign, it's going to liven up the place. And Well, they also want to liven up your wallet too, because when you go to teamticker.com, use code LOCKEDON. That's all one word, locked on, for $50 off your first purchase. Again, guys, go to teamticker.com, use code LOCKEDON for $50 off your first purchase. All right, before diving into the mailbag, guys, excuse me, another swig of water here. Just screaming at the television for so long during that Spartans-Hawks basketball game today. No, whatever. So let's dive into the mailbag here. And actually, we're going to go back a few days because I asked for your biggest overreactions from that Indiana game. All right, and we covered a lot of them on Saturday. Just covered a few right there. Just the concern about the longevity of Michigan State versus Indiana. Seeing a guy do it in year one versus a guy that's telling you to be patient, well, golly gee willikers, will that patient part even work out? We hit a lot of it on Saturday, guys. But right now, we're going to go to Crum because they wrote a very good point. I never want to see the black unis again. Same. Thanks. You know what? I was one of the people crying for it. I wanted to see a Michigan State black jersey. I thought it looked cool. Thought it'd be flashy, you know, just fitting with all the new kids, the new cool kids that are also doing black jerseys. Thanks for giving it a try. All set, though, on it. All set. For some reason, there's like 70 things that you could rail on for last year's team, and like this is like one of the things that I just will not get off of this hill dying on, is that unveiling those black jerseys for the first game against Michigan, a team that was always going to send you through the wood chipper last year, was one of the most, in a season full of maniacal decision-making processes, that had to have been near the top of the list. Hey, great New Jersey. It was the story of our offseason. We're trying to get some juice back in this program. What better game to wear these iconic new jerseys for than, well, your own funeral, which is basically what happened last year. Now, of course, no one really could foresee a 37-point beat down to Indiana, but it's not like you were expected to win this game. I would have liked to save them for a very winnable game to get some good memories out of them for once. I've even said this in the offseason. This is not our first time having this chat. I would have saved them for the Prairie View A&M game. Like a little chip shot game for you right there. Or, hey, you know what? You want to get nuts? Friday night against Purdue. I know that Purdue normally wears some black in their outfits, or their uniforms, I should say, but just unveil them. Probably some good memories coming there, but after that, losing both games by, oh my God, whatever 49 plus 37 is, 86, I think. 86 points combined is what you lose, what you've lost by in those jerseys. I'm all set on them. All set on the black jerseys. Thanks, but we gave it a try. That's what you got to do sometimes in life. Now, Spartan 1963 writes in a question that we're going to answer with another question here. They write, more toxic. 3 Mile Island or MSU Twitter after a loss? And then Greek Omelet writes in, which is going to answer this question, I think. Are we fans actually frustrated with the pace of the rebuild, or do we just come down with a major case of Signetti envy? And I think that's where the fire comes from a lot of the fans here, because, guys, we've seen a lot of losses in the last few years. Let's not kid ourselves, especially, little 2-game losing streaks. We've seen one earlier this year. Boston College, Ohio State, and Oregon. They didn't treat us too nicely. Not a lot of ire in the fan base. Where I think it really came from right now, and why I think another bye week was, once again, right around the corner at the right time, is just because the extra stank on those losses. The Michigan game, of course. And not just the Michigan game, but against a really bad Michigan team. Like, maybe the worst that you'll see for another generation. Like, I can't state how horrible of a team that is there. That was a very gettable game, and that's what makes that loss against Michigan even worse. You'll let one slip through your hands, right? In a very opportune time. 1 year off a national title for them, and you can knock them off that podium. Oh my, that would have been a seismic statement by Jonathan Smith, but we didn't get it. And what do we get the week after that? Well, it's not just a loss to Indiana. You can stomach that. It's the fact that it happened by 37 points. There are some people out there that thinks the team rolled over and quit. I'm not one of those people that's going to use the Q word, but it certainly seemed like the wind got taken out of their sails completely after that second interception. But it's because they also have a first-year head coach. And they are rolling like a death machine. down there. And it is Cignetti that did that to you. So let's not kid ourselves. It's not just, your 2 everyday losses. It's 2 losses with some extra emotion behind it. So look, rationally speaking, I know that it was not fun on Saturday, but Michigan State's goals, at least the ones that I set, Vegas set for them, maybe you set for them, of just at least making a bowl game, are still in front of them. Look, we'll talk about it later on this week, but if you were one of the people that had like 8-4, 9-3 as your preseason goals, I don't know what to tell you. At that point, sure, you are free to be upset because that's pretty much impossible right now. Now, Jason writes into the mailbag at lockedonspartans@gmail.com. Tradition is important in the NCAA, but the almighty dollar rules. What are the chances that we see a Scum versus Michigan State rematch in Detroit? 0%, because you can't have 2 teams from the same conference in a bowl game unless it's a playoff game. But still, I would. Oh my God, that would just be awesome. Oh, the toxicity in Ford Field on that evening would ruin the holiday spirit for everyone in attendance that night. But no, of course, I would love another bite at that apple. Now, there is, of course, some years where, actually most years, that I just like this game being once a year. Whether Michigan State wins, like in 2021, all set being the only time we play them. Or, hey, like last year when we get pummeled by them, all set seeing them. More times than not, I'm good just seeing that game once a year. All right, but this year, oh my God, I'd just love to just go back and seeing if MSU could right their runs from that game. Oh, that was bad. So it's a 0%, but I wish it was 100, Jason. Anyway, Papa Mattis is going to take us home with his last mailbag question. Who is better, Ohio State or Indiana? He writes in, my current ranking, number 1, Oregon, number 2, Indiana, number 3, Ohio State, number 4, Penn State, number 5, who cares? Then also writes in, by the way, we will still get a bowl game, and I sure hope so, Papa Maddox. But I got to say, guys, not to be prisoner of the moment, not to, just get caught up in this whole Kurt Cignetti hoopla going on down there in Bloomington, but I'm very well probably going to eat my words. Indiana will be underdogs when they go to Columbus, but I am going to pick the Hoosiers to win that game. What really stuck out to me the most in that game Saturday, as we're watching MSU get clubbed over the head like a baby seal, is that those Indiana trenches seemed real, right? I know that they have the tremendously weak schedule, right? I know this is all flash in the pan or whatever you want to say. What we saw Saturday and the whole season is real. I know their schedule sucks, and you could probably find a high school with a tougher schedule. They are buzzsawing all those teams, though. We talked about it last week, how difficult it is, no matter how easy your schedule, to win every single week by double digits in college. All right? It doesn't happen. Michigan State was the first team to do it in 2013 when they did it. How long has the Big Ten been around for? It takes a lot to be that dominant. But, man, it's not just the quick-hitting offense. It's not just the smart quarterback. It's not just the great coordinators that they have. Those trenches were real. And I think that maybe not better than Ohio State, but at least up to par with them. All right, so if that's up to par, well, who do I trust more? Of course, Ohio State has the better skill position players on the outside, but you know who I also think has a really big advantage? I think Indiana has a coaching advantage between both teams. It's going to be a hard game. It's going to be probably a night game in Columbus. Indiana will be underdogs, but right now, I kind of do agree. Number 1, Oregon. Number 2, Indiana. Number 3, Ohio State. And how blessed are we as Spartan fans to have played all 3 teams so far this year in our first 9 games. The schedule's got to get better next year, right? Oh my God. Really got put through the gauntlet there. Purdue, please come to Spartan Stadium soon. All right, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. We're going to have Dalton Shetler on tomorrow. We're going to talk football, of course, but also a little bit of women's basketball, give that program some shine here. And then later this week, Chase Glasser. Going to have Carter Elliott on, too. It's going to be a hoot and a half to end the week. Till then, guys, hey, suck at Monmouth. That's right. Victory for MSU. Go celebrate that victory, everyone. All right, guys, love you all. Go green.